Launch sequence?
Launch sequence, yes.
Countdown.
Everybody hold on.
Okay, so we're on.
We're on?
Where is the camera now? Is this thing?
Yes. Oh. This one's only for if we're doing WebEx.
It's not bad. Something.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Calling the McHenry County Board of Health meeting at 6:35 and 15 seconds. Okay. Do we have any public participation? I don't think so. Do you have anyone on the line?
No.
Okay. All right. So, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting, June 13th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the 13th.
Second?
Second, I'll second.
Any discussion, corrections, amendments? Okay, Darlene? Hey Jay, we're approving the minutes for the meeting
How are you
from
guys?
last month.
Ms. Carmen?
Yes.
Dr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Galati?
Yes.
Mr. Markison?
Yes.
Ms. Morowski? Yes. Ms. Gaffney?
Yes. All right, department and division updates, Melissa.
Sure. I'm going to start with introductions, and I'm sorry, Dr. Tomaso, but I didn't recognize you behind your mask. So our new medical advisor, Dr. Tomaso, is with us. We do have so typically, future, you're welcome up here. We have a nameplate for you. So welcome.
We have one.
We do have one, yes. And then also I want to, for some of you have already met Henry. This is Henry Majonskowski. He's our manager of fiscal operations. Been with us
About a month.
a month. Feels like one.
Is it title manager?
I'm sorry.
It's a manager of fiscal operations, yes. So wanted to welcome him. Just a couple of things. So we are working on the budget, the 2023 budget. The current internal meeting with the county is set for August 9th. Then we'll bring it before the Finance Committee of the Board of Health. I know Darlene sent out a message today. Then it'll go to the Board of Health on the August agenda. And from there it goes to Public Health and Community Services on September 1st. So we will be bringing that back next month. Building A is going through some exterior renovations, so all the unsightly stuff is supposed to be getting cleaned up. They're putting on a new roof, they're replacing the windows, and then they're going to redo the exterior. So that is all scheduled to be done before winter, so this fall. But they're still working with the contractor on a final schedule, so once we have that, we can share that. And the compensation survey that the county did, those adjustments were effective as of July 1. Some of these numbers, I think they're accurate. We have roughly 105 staff currently. And 10 of those staff received no adjustments. And that would have been because they were at or above the midpoint on the new scale. 55 people moved into grade, so they were below the grade of the new scale, so they moved them into grade. 47 received years of service adjustments, so they did that up to 10 years. So anybody at 1 year on up got credit. Then 25 staff received both in-grade adjustments as well as years of service adjustments. So I just wanted to share that. I know Susan's going to talk more about the community transmission, but we did move into high. We sent out a message to staff, so we are all masking up again. So just wanted to keep that out there. And that is my...
Will that be in all government buildings?
No, it's just our staff.
Okay. Where have you had a chance to look at the numbers for compression from the survey? I mean, the implementation of the financial side of things.
If there's more compression, how so? I mean, I think they tried to utilize the years of service to address the compression, But they were only going up to the midpoint, so anybody who was already pretty high on their scale and didn't change a grade, they would still be, those are those 10 folks who've been here, typically pretty long service history, so over 10 years, but were above above the midpoint even after the scale moved.
So they didn't move at all?
No. Or they received no, yeah, they didn't move because by the model and logic that the county used to make those adjustments, they were already above that midpoint.
How is that gonna work? How is that gonna work? I'm just thinking out loud. How is that gonna work then when it comes time for pay raises?
You mean the annual, everyone should be eligible. It would go back to eligibility based on when you are hired. So even if you got an adjustment, you will still be eligible for your annual adjustment.
Is there a percentage over midpoint that some of these are? Like, say for instance, we hired a new person and they came in at midpoint because that's where the competitive rate was, but their salary is very close to someone who was above midpoint.
Well, those are things that those are decisions we have to make with every new hire.
Right.
Because it does have an impact if you bring somebody in at the midpoint and you have staff who've been here a long time and they're now just at the midpoint. Those are things that we have to decide with every
Right,
hire.
and I'm talking about the ones that are above the midpoint. You know, I mean, if the midpoint's the cutoff, even if they're $1,000 more, and someone's way above the midpoint, if you bring someone in at midpoint and they're just $1,000 more and they've been here 20 years, it doesn't seem to be right either. You know, I know you'll look at it, but I'm just throwing that out there.
And that's not, so we can't just bring somebody in at the midpoint. That requires additional approvals
Right.
through county HR and county admin.
Where does it put us in regards to the external comparables as far as fair compensation?
Also a good question, because we haven't done an internal comparison with all our positions. The county did not do a comparison with every position that's on the roster in the county. They selected positions from every grade, right? Because they're putting positions into a grade, and then they went out and got the comparisons for those positions. We did have a few positions, so some of our positions were selected for them to go out and look at comparisons.
But the only comparisons they looked at, correct, were other counties. They didn't look at the normal workforce. Like, they didn't go out in the
I
nursing
believe they looked at
workforce.
government, so surrounding counties. I think they looked at Chicago metropolitan.
Right, but it was government related, it wasn't,
I believe
because
so.
it's nothing to do with you. I'm just, the fault in that survey, to me, I'm glad we got it passed, but the fault in that survey is that, that's not our competition for employees. Our competition for employees is everybody else. They're trying to get the same employees we're trying to get, so, does that make sense? It makes sense what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I see what you're saying, and I don't, I'm not sure how that decision or those decisions were made.
Yeah.
In terms of what they compared to. I think they followed the same process they did in the prior compensation survey.
Right, plus it took them 8 or 9 months to do this, and we're already behind the 8 ball, so whatever they got during this gathering period is already outdated. You know.
To change gears just a little bit, and I agree. The only list I had was from Director Marin. I think it was from the selected positions from around the county that was sent out. Do we have something, or were you just saying that we don't have something internally?
So we didn't, for all of our positions, we have not done a corresponding internal investigation of all our positions against the market. That's what the study was.
But we have, what you said, 110 positions, and we have,
119.
105. Well, we have more than that. That's how many people,
okay.
not
And
positions.
of all of them, how many did not get a pay increase of any kind? 10?
When I counted 10.
10, okay. And then this is just a comparison, compensation study, because we are behind, but this does not take into account the current rate of inflation, CPI, correct? We are possibly anticipating some other relief from the county, hopefully?
That I don't know.
Oh, okay.
In terms of what might be planned, I think typically CPI has not been part of the annual
It's not.
compensation adjustments.
It's not usually 10% either.
Yeah.
9.1 or whatever it's at right now. Okay, thank you. Not to grill you. I mean, the messenger, so.
For
I'm
the-
already dead, so.
For the grades that were compared to other agencies, if I recall, this study said we were at about 40% of compensation to the external comparables before adjustments were made. Now that the adjustments have been made to those grades, how do we compare to those outside agencies?
Good question. Haven't run those calculations. So you want to know what our percentages, where our pay scale falls with what was reported in the study summary report?
Correct.
Is that what you mean?
Now that the adjustments have been made, where do we lie in regards to the other county agencies
In
and
comparison
municipal
to other
agencies?
counties, I think he's saying how we compare ourselves, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, how does McHenry County
Yeah.
rate in comparison
Since the adjustments.
to the other? Did we make progress?
Yeah, did we get
Did
where
we go from
intended to go?
40% to
Yeah, I mean-
80%? Did we go 40% to 45%? That's, I'm just,
I don't recall, but I'm looking for, I believe the study is in one of the public meeting packets, so I will see if I can find that for you, and that might be in there.
okay.
But, we did make progress, but I don't know what the percentage is.
The reason for the adjustment is we were losing in competition for hiring and retaining employees. If this adjustment didn't have significant impact, it's not going to improve that situation. It's my hope that it is significant enough that,
I have the report. I can send it
Okay,
out.
you found it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk about the Archer group.
Yeah, I've got it.
yeah,
here.
we've got that.
Yeah, I thought I had sent it out
Yeah, we've got
before,
Yeah, we have.
but I'm happy to send it out again. I just want to make sure that I understand the request. So I'm scrolling through the report.
That agency should do an analysis now that the payroll has been adjusted to revise where our standings are with the other counties and municipalities.
But if they take 9 months again, it's gonna put us back again. I don't think it's the same agency we should pick. I think that we should have different options. Maybe somebody inside does that in-house, that maybe knows the people according to their experience or background, how long they have been with us.
Well, this wasn't our selection.
No, I know, I'm just saying, still.
Part of the process is that rather than waiting 5 years, it's going to be looked at again in 2.
Good.
So that I do remember, in terms of.
Lori, there was some question. I thought that they weren't gonna use that Archer group again.
Oh, there was quite a bit of discussion about that. Yeah, but it was the one selected.
Is it the one that's gonna be maintaining going forward every year?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I just know there was a commitment about not waiting 5 years to look again.
Okay, so I will see about calculating that information across the grades, right? Because our positions fall into grades, so I think I have to do it by grade.
Well, I wonder what Cheryl might have, so you don't have to.
That's true. She
Yeah.
probably, yeah, because the spreadsheets we have that we received are not as detailed, I think, as maybe what the county has.
Further clarification then, so if you're talking about the grades, and I know we talk about the midpoint,
The market midpoint.
the market midpoint and the McHenry County midpoint, right? So somebody new gets hired in as what's the lowest, where would somebody get hired in as a environmental health practitioner? What's
Environmental health practitioner in training.
trainee, and that would be a grade of, is there a grade associated with that?
Yes, it's a 7.
7, okay, and then do people stay in that grade and then they move out of it? I guess my point being like, could somebody new come into a grade and, actually more direct question, is everybody in that grade paid the same amount?
No.
Okay, so that's where the midpoint comes from. They take everybody's salary in there, they divide it by the number of people, and they say that's where we want the midpoint to be. I'm assuming that's what they mean by that.
I don't think so.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know how they establish it, but I mean,
Okay.
there's a scale for every grade and, you know, then there's a 20,000 or 20% range from the baseline to the midpoint.
Okay.
So how that calculation is.
Right.
So there's a salary and then there's also a longevity payment, so that this gets,
This one time.
oh, this is a one-time longevity payment.
Well, I mean, that's what this particular adjustment was for.
Okay.
Whether or not the county approves. So some people, and people were capped at 10,000, right? So some people who had service credits or service adjustments didn't realize all of those adjustments, right? Because they would have been capped out at $10,000. Now, we have that calculation of what it would have been if they had gotten, say, 20 years of service, right?
10,000.
Because you can calculate that.
10,000 being both for that one-time longevity adjustment and the increase in your salary? So you could have gotten $10,000 annually, or you could get $10,000 for one.
No, sorry. So let's say you needed to be brought into the grade, and to do that, it was $5,000 to do it. So you've got that $5,000.
Annually?
No. Well, so your wage is increasing,
Okay.
right? Your hourly rate is gonna increase by that amount. So yes, that $10,000 becomes part of your annual, you're not getting that $10,000 as one lump sum payment. It's increasing your salary by that amount.
Okay.
So let's say you got the 5,000 to bring you into grade, but you also had 5,000 in years of service, you got that too, but you couldn't go over the 10. There are a few exceptions if it costs more to get somebody into grade. If it was, let's say it cost $11,000 to bring somebody into grade, they said, okay, we're gonna bring you into grade, even though the parameters we have set are capping it at 10. But then they might not, if they've been there a long time, in their position for 10 years, or in their position, not how long you've been working for the department or the county, it's in your position. But let's say you had worked, for many years, you would have gotten no service credit because you would have already hit that max. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if you did receive a longevity payment, it's not a one-time thank you for your service. It's literally, that would be a bump to your salary to bring.
Yes, so it does increase your salary.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Hi, my apologies, I'm late. Regional Office of Education.
Oh.
But say.
Welcome.
Board of Health.
This one's better.
Is this time for citizens?
We got donuts. We have
You
donuts.
have to wait till next month.
Enjoy your night. Good night.
Bye.
So, Melissa, if I could just share that in the June packet, the county board packet for the June meeting, the resolution is, hold on to your hats, number 16, point B, point 2, point 1.
Of course.
Do it.
And it can be found in the beginning of page 122. And so this is the public posted on the county board site in the meeting portal, and there's the resolution, the staff additional narrative, which I find very helpful. So thank you very much, staff, for filling those out all the time. And then the study is there as well, and some of the breakdowns from Cheryl in HR. And again, it is across the board, but there may be some information there that can answer some of your questions as well. So just wanted to call your attention to that.
I do have one further question. Much of what has been discussed keeps referencing this midpoint of the pay scale for a specific grade. And it seems that this midpoint was the barrier for people to receive additional compensation. Of our 105 employees, how many of them fall, in their grade, fall between the midpoint and the top of the pay scale? Approximately.
I think it's 10. But I need to go back and calculate that, right? Because everybody got to the midpoint. Let me go back and verify that. Because my spreadsheet's not gonna tell me that easily. It's not set up that way to just easily calculate if you're over the midpoint. But let me go back and look, because they were bringing people up to the midpoint, right?
So to your point, looking at the data, and I know we probably should have gone on this a little bit early, but we wanted to get this passed. I'm taking something outside of our department. The division chief, criminal division, county midpoint on the scale is 109, basically $110,000. The market midpoint is 140, okay? The proposed midpoint's 122. Why were we not, I mean, it's like it's water under the bridge, but why were we not at the market midpoint?
I can't answer that, not without going back.
No, I'm not,
Yeah, just so you know, I
I'm
mean,
just
I'm
making an
happy to go-
observation that really is kind of, if that's the market, then why are we below the market from a hiring standpoint, you know? from a bit-
We've
Yeah.
identified the problem, we refuse to fix it.
Well, I would suggest that,
Or we could have, I'm sure Cheryl would be happy to come, join us at a meeting if that's of interest, maybe to answer some of those questions about how some of those decisions were made, or maybe even the county administrator. I think they've offered before, so if that's something you'd like me to set up, I'd be happy to, or maybe at one of our finance or personnel committee meetings, we could set one up and have them attend. I don't know.
I would suggest that the cost to the taxpayers to go from point A to the market value was going to be too high all at one time.
Right.
So that the county implemented what they could at this point in time. Now it's our goal to keep them on task, to move it forward as time goes by at the next budget year, the budget year after that. And within a reasonable period of time to get these positions competitive with the other employers so that we can hire and retain employees and make McHenry County a place people want to come to work, not a stepping stone to go somewhere else. We want them to come here and stay here for their career and retire from here.
And those were the conversations that we had at the county
Good.
level as well, so we certainly, the county board understands that, and I don't remember the total number, but yes, it's balancing that with the, the potential tax levy
Right.
that we will address in the fall when we have to determine the budget. So I would agree that, the number was probably, very large, and so we'll, as we move into, because it's a recurring dollar amount, and so as we look to the departments to bring us their budgets, then, we'll be having those conversations so that we can identify, how do we meet the needs here and address the compensation and the hiring and retention, because certainly retention, is a goal. So, and Cindy, to your question
Yeah.
about types of positions, it does say in the study that it was data related to regional governments.
Okay.
Because we are a government agency, and so there were multiple counties, all the counties in the northwest suburbs here and beyond. Winnebago's out west, right?
Mhm.
But then also some city and villages, and McHenry County College, and the high school district. So in the list of companies that were surveyed, I'm seeing, all government entities, and I'm just looking, I'm not seeing a.
Yeah, it's sometimes, especially if you're talking about nursing in the private workforce, it's a
Oh,
totally
yeah.
different story. And
Yes,
so,
it is.
Melissa, of the 10 people that did not move, and I know just asking, I don't know, you don't have an answer, but are we at risk losing any of those 10?
I don't know.
I mean, has anyone expressed dissatisfaction?
I haven't heard anything roll up to me. We have had to address a couple of things, but of those folks who were already above the midpoint, I'm not aware of anything that's been brought to my attention about those particular folks. We did tell staff early on, we tried to explain and share information about the county's process and their methodology to set expectations so that those folks would know that they were probably already there. If there is that feedback, then I definitely would encourage staff to bring that forward, but I haven't heard that based on us sharing that information up front to set those expectations.
Anecdotally, are those people longer service years with us? Are they at higher?
So they were
higher
already, so
promotional
within
level?
whichever grade they were in, right, they were already high within their grade.
Now, how many people needed a whole $10,000? Was there a lot?
No.
Oh.
Give me a second.
We have others. It's a countywide thing.
So 8 staff maxed out at the 10. And then it goes down from there, you know, high 9s all the way down. And those tended to be staff who tended, okay, to be in their position. The lowest one was 3 years in their position, but all the way up to 21 years in their position.
Which is another issue, because maybe some people are looking at, I'm not gonna make a big stink because I'm gonna tap out. You know?
Well, there's a
Retire.
whole other question of, you know, what does that, you know, I think the county, we've been trying to work with them, and we have countered on some things where maybe we weren't in agreement to say, hey, wait a second. You know, in some cases, there were a few discrepancies, and we've sat down with them to try to work that out to find some common ground.
Well,
Ideally in the favor of our employee.
no, I was to say, my own personal, my job, we went through the adjustment. So I was like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Well, I barely got a raise that year. But I was like, oh, bummed, but I thought, oh, I'm so glad I've been paid correctly since I started. Like, I, you know, fought for my starting salary. So in the long, it didn't make me want to leave. It made me, disappointed that year, but I was glad that I didn't have to, I made enough money. I was, you know, being compensated well. So that's just my personal.
Kind of like Social Security.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Depending on when you want to take it, how long.
Yeah, so hopefully those people have that same attitude, like, hey, I actually been paid what I should have been the last, 5-10 years, whatever it was.
So based on what you said with the $10,000 cap, and not to point anybody out, but there's one that I've seen, one job listing here that's relevant to us on in public health. The director of nursing is listed on there. And it sounds like your midpoint would have been greater than the 10,000, so that was capped at that then. So that we missed out on achieving some more of that parity. But I see, it looks like the county too, we were talking before about how much they went up. It appears that they were not gonna go over 112% for any position. So interesting food for thought there. I wondered, with that $10,000 cap, that was imposed throughout the county, right? That's
As far as I know, yes.
okay. 'Cause
That
some
was
of
part
those-
of the methodology of, and I think Lori stated, and I think Mr. Clark too, right? This was step 1, hopefully,
Mhm.
in a series of steps, but step 2 isn't guaranteed, and I don't think that decision has been made.
What makes me feel better than also seeing like the CFO of the county was the highest listed one on there, was jumping from basically 136, they were proposing 152. So obviously he or she only went to 146,000 at the 10,000 cap, so they'll be looking back at that. So, What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Thank you.
Anyone have other questions for Melissa?
Do we have employees that are at the top of their grades?
That, we might have a couple who are very close,
It would just,
but very, very few.
it would seem to me that approximately 25% of your workforce should be at or near the top of their pay grade, depending upon years of service that they've been with us. I mean,
That I could
if
calculate.
you have an employee that's here 20 years, and they're only at the mid-grade, it's false advertising to advertise at the top of the pay grades over here, when at 20 years, you're only gonna be here. That's false advertising.
I understand that, and I don't know, again, what those conversations, other than what I've participated in terms of the county, with all the prior adjustments that have been made, so it seems like they make adjustments, they move you into grade, right? So you keep moving, while your salary goes up, you're not necessarily being moved from this point on the scale to the same point on the new scale, right? They're just moving you to the new scale. If that makes sense.
Yes, because they're adjusting the grade scale at the same time they adjust your rate of pay.
But let's
And
say,
so
you're between the mid and the third quartile before they make the adjustment. They make the adjustment, they're not moving you between that same spot on the scale. They're not moving you to the mid, to the third
Correct,
quartile.
correct.
But you may move to, well, that's a bad example because you are.
I have some concerns about that. But I understand.
Any other questions from Melissa?
Melissa, I'm sorry, what's Henry's last name? Henry, what's your last name?
It's Mike Skowski.
Okay.
Common spelling.
Might you start that for me in spelling?
M-I-O-N-S
M-I?
like Sam,
Uh-huh.
K-O-W-S-K.
Oh, just like it sounds.
Exactly.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, Henry, would you please be so kind as to do the report for the finances?
Sure. So this is our income and expense, actual versus budget, and year to date. I'm happy to report that we are profitable at $168,000 over revenue over expenses. Revenues were, year to date, were $3.8 million versus expenses of $3.7 million, giving us the $168,000 profit year to date. June was a different story. June was $300,000 under unprofitable at this point, but again, that's because, I mean, this is basically skewed because, June is basically just 1 month out of the year to date. So, and being, we have the fiscal year, the different fiscal years. It's not a really good indicator, just June being unprofitable. Versus budget, again, because of the different fiscal years of the grants, our income is 1.9 million under budget, but again, that's because we're only at June, and a lot of these grants have different fiscal years. So, being 1.9 under budget revenue-wise is not. It's kind of skewed. Same thing on the expense side. Year to date, we had 3.7 million in expenses versus 9.3 million. Of course, we're favorable at this point at 5.7 million. And again, year to date, our net profit actual versus budget, we were favorable at 3.7 million. But again, I wouldn't really go by the year to date at this point, just because of the different fiscal years.
Thank you. Any questions for Henry? Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, Henry. The only thing I would say is, we don't ever make profit, we're just under budget or we're over budget.
Right.
But thank you very much.
Director Howell, would you like to?
Okay, so I did want to just apprise you of an interesting thing we're seeing right now. So we all know, during COVID, a lot of businesses had to shut down, lost employees, starting to come back into the office, and then they're seeing COVID cases in their clinics or their office or wherever. And then you're seeing people who want to leave because they're not getting paid enough money. So we're seeing another number of vet clinics that are really struggling. And by state law, if there's a bite, the animal either has to do home confinement or vet confinement. If the animal is out of date on its vaccine, obviously we want it in the vet's office for the confinement. If there's been a bite, right, and it's a serious bite, obviously we don't want it home either. So we're just seeing a little struggle right now where the vet's offices just don't have as many appointments, or they don't have the same number of staff. It's difficult for them to do the overnight confinement. And so we're doing a little bit more in our office with rabies observations there. That said, it's a little more difficult for us because a 10-day observation ends up turning into a 12 or 13-day, depending on our vet's availability as well. So we're seeing it on that end as far as those. We're seeing some more people who are just not able to care for the animals, so relinquished calls are going up a little bit. And then vaccination registration, we're not sure if the struggle is people can't get in or if the struggle is reporting to us. So we're still behind on to get the reports from the vet's offices. Sometimes it's because there's one person who does all those records that come to us, and maybe they're out for some reason for their family member or whatever it is, or they're changing physical people, or they're changing staff. So that's been a little bit of struggle we're kind of watching. I have somebody this week making calls to all the vet's office to find out exactly who is still doing this, who is still doing that, so that when people are calling us to say we're having a hard time getting our animal in for rabies observation, we know what the climate is out there in McHenry County or slightly over the county. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that, because those are obviously very important. And in the last year, we've gone up about 120 bites. So 120 bites in a year, that's only 10 a month, but that still takes time to do the research, get the information done, the staff calls, things like that. So every one that we go up is more time on our staff, and as you know, we continue to lose staff. I did just lose an office assistant in the last couple of weeks who went to a municipality that could pay her, $7, $8 more an hour. So there's still that struggle too. My staff are union, so we have to go through that process to make any changes. Good news though, we have hired 3 new staff, 2 officers and an office person. They're all working out pretty well so far. We have Worldwide that's coming in to help us still with our tag packets and such. We have an intern who comes over once a week, helps us with some of the education, because we did lose our health educator, our volunteer health educator anyway. We have community service still coming in, and we are working with Workforce Network. So we have somebody who's probably going to start with us next week from Workforce Network. So we do have some bodies to do some things. They just can't do all the skilled work that we need. But we are making progress at least. Also, Article 6, you should be getting that at the end of the week because we have the meeting next week. That has been complete, and you'll see the changes that are in there. We've been reviewing all of our policies and kind of meeting with health administration as far as centralizing those and kind of reviewing those again. So I think that's what I have for my list.
The contract negotiations for the union is coming up, right?
Yes, yes. Sometimes it'll happen in the fall, sometimes it happens a little later. But yes, November 30th, the contract is up.
And I know we can't say anything to the staff because they're union, but I mean, I'm surprised, just a comment, I'm surprised that they haven't been unhappy with the low salaries.
We've got, when it comes to contracts, we've seen them, ask in August, we've seen them ask in October, I've seen them ask at the end of November. So I really can't speak for them.
They weren't affected by this compensation study?
They were not affected by the compensation study. And they were well aware of that.
And we obviously want to support them. And being in a union is not an adversarial thing. We want those employees, we want them to be happy with us, we want them to stay with us. So hopefully when negotiations come around, we can agree on a favorable package. That must be especially tough for them, seeing the raises come to everyone else
And they clearly know that some of the other counties pay better, right? Are they just,
they're just like Mary Ellen. They like her, they want to stay. That's good.
They like it.
I mean,
They're
it's
passionate
such a
about the work that
small
they do.
group, it's such a small group, I'm just surprised. Kathy's in charge of it, right? She's the
steward. The steward.
Steward, yeah.
I have a question for you. I've been reading that the other shelters are closing or cutting back their, like a CC, there was another one. Is that gonna have a big impact on you guys?
I think it's just gonna have to be a wait and see, right? I know another rescue in our area just shut as well. We keep a list of the rescues and we're kind of expanding them out. Like we used to mostly give people just the rescues in our county, but when they're in need, we give them a little bit more. Because obviously we have a hard time taking animals right now too. We are still taking them as relinquishes because that's we're mandated to do that. But we do want them first to find some other options too. So I think time will tell whether that's gonna affect. Obviously it is affecting it because we are taking in more relinquishes than we normally would take.
Is that area-wide, the shelters closing?
Oh, yeah, statewide.
I mean, Helping Paws is not open to the public right now. It's by appointment only. So that gives you some idea. I know Perfect Cat's open to the public.
Some are to max right now, some are
Yeah.
to capacity.
Who's the one that closed down? Can't say?
Well, we can talk about it after.
Okay.
Did you say there was 120 more bites this year? Or that's?
In the last year,
In the last, 120 or more than expected?
more than typical. We've been going up the last couple of years.
Wow, so even through, does that compare through the pandemic and then before the pandemic, or do you attribute this to the pandemic, or?
That's hard to say. I would say they're typical bites, they're not anything different than
Yeah.
out of the ordinary kind of bites.
They get dogs.
So whether it is more
They
people,
don't train.
got some animals that weren't able to train them during the pandemic.
Right.
We definitely see people calling to relinquish because they just don't have time to train that 8, 9-month-old puppy that's starting to bite or chew or whatever.
So with the ebb and flow that we saw in the pandemic, people went out and they got pets, they got dogs. And then now the pandemic's ending, or they lost their jobs, now they're relinquishing these dogs. And now we see that. Did we see, or do we still have higher dog ownership in the county, do you expect, than before?
So we went up about 12,000 registrations in the last year as well. So, well, I'm gonna take back a year, we have to look at the calendar to actually see what it was, but it's about 12,000.
So it's up. Okay, more dog bites.
Any
And
other-
cats, don't forget cats.
Sorry. Cats don't bite, they.
I'm just saying more registration of
Right,
cats.
right.
Any other questions for Mary Ellen? Thank you. Director Merritt?
Thank you. As part of being a certified health department, we are required to complete an organizational assessment. Final reviews have taken place and final edits are being conducted. Thank you to all the directors for the series of meetings and reviews in order to accomplish this. The organizational assessment will be used to enhance the strategic plan, goals, and objectives. The final assessment will be presented to the board at the next meeting. Speaking of the strategic plan, staff was surveyed to clarify our mission, vision, and values. We sent out an all-staff survey and reviewed it, and so we have that part completed. We are going to be using the ISC report, the original 2020 roadmap, as well as the organizational assessment to complete the strategic plan. This is really a good assessment that kind of says, hey, where are we lacking? What are we doing? What direction do we need to go in? So that's that regarding the strategic plan. The Crystal Lake Community Electronic Sign will begin construction now in October. It needed additional electrical due to the upgrades in the Wi-Fi, and electricians are being booked out 3 to 5 weeks. So we're looking at end of September, beginning of October start to that construction project, and we expect it to be done by the end of October, weather permitting. And that's all I have.
What percentage of participation did you get in the survey?
Boy,
I guess.
30. I don't remember.
But it was less than 50%.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Mayer?
Donuts are available too. It's for everyone, for newcomers, it's for everyone.
Director Cares.
Health department.
First one to
Healthy snacks.
Healthy brain.
introduce one of our new epidemiologists that joined Ryan's team. Her name is Maura.
Welcome. Stay with us.
No begging, donuts.
There's donuts.
So Maura's diving in with the opioid projects that we're starting and working on. Mr. Vijek from the county board did request a presentation from the Substance Abuse Coalition from Lloyd Crane, and she invited Ryan to join her during that CAL to present the surveillance piece. From what just today, we got notified that the Mental Health Board is requesting that same presentation to be presented there. And I reached out to Melissa and Ann to get onto the agenda, not just to present this information to the board, but kind of what we are doing internally and building those response plans that we talked about with those grants that we got. So that is soon to come. We are preparing for back to school vaccines. We're adding appointment slots in clinics. We also are seeing an increase in Ukrainian immigrants. They are not refugees. They're part of a humanitarian parole program for 2 years. They're allowed to be here, and they are coming to us for the IGRA, or the blood test for TB, which is required for them to be part of that program. So we're doing, you might see a big increase in our budget for labs for TB, and that is why. Just to get on to the real important stuff, the monkeypox update. If you haven't seen the press release, we did identify our first monkeypox case on Saturday. It is a probable test. The specimen has been forwarded to the CDC for confirmation. However, we are treating it as confirmation because it is the only orthopox that is circulating in the United States. So we fully expect it will be positive. So the case is completely cooperating with isolation, and we are helping this individual with resources because it could be an extended period of time that they're isolated because they have to wait till those pox dry up and a new layer of skin starts forming. Contact tracing is ongoing. Those individuals are being identified and contacted and offered the vaccine. We've placed an order for our vaccine, and we're expecting to get that in the next couple days so we can vaccinate. We also launched our website for monkeypox. It's a specific website. It has information for the general population as well as healthcare providers, because a lot of that is changing, and you probably well know as far as where to call, how to get their treatment if they want to treat, and how that process looks. So we're trying to keep that information updated as we receive it. COVID update, we are in high, as Melissa mentioned earlier. Our case incident rate is at 235. Our hospital regional inpatient is what threw us over last week, where our hospital rates internally in our county was low. I mean, we were not there to make us high, but they do use the regional. But I received a report today from Ryan and his team that we are climbing in the hospitalization, so he fully expects that by next week we still would have been hitting high with our hospital rates. We are seeing, we have been notified of the B5 is Omicron variant is in McHenry County. So it is here, which is probably what's causing us to see these increases. We did receive our pediatric doses, and Kyle got his check.
Not me, my, yeah.
Right, I know, yes, you
I'm-
stop asking, yeah.
I'm
When will
older-
my kid get vaccinated?
I'm older than 5.
So we did set up specific clinics for that age population. They were fairly, they filled up, but we didn't have to open up new ones, so that was kind of disheartening. So partially vaccinated for our population in McHenry County, I had our epidemiologists run that, and we're at 3.3% uptake for
Wow.
partial. So we're not seeing the uptake like we would like to see, and that's true across the board for all our kiddos. So we'll see.
So sorry, if you're done.
I'm done.
Oh.
Thank you.
On the child vaccination, one thing that struck out to me that would have been nice, and I know it was one thing that I kind of like, was on my mind when I was scheduling hers. So for I have a 3.5-year-old, was, you think about how many pokes you're gonna need, right? So I went with Moderna because that was the information I had seen. It was also less pokes, and that's, right, as a parent, that's what you wanna do. Usually, typically, less pain for them. And when I went there, I really wanted to, I couldn't do it, the day was all pediatric, like those are all pediatric days, and I asked, it'd be really nice if I could have gotten my booster at the same time, so that she could see me get it right ahead of time. And the staff was awesome. They're like, well, we can't do that, but we can give you a fake, right? So like, a fake poke, right? So they're like, we can't actually break skin, and I was like, I'm a medical professional, you wanna just give me that? And they were like, no. So they were good, they stuck to their guns. And they swabbed, or they cleansed the site, and we made it look real for her, and that helped. It would be nice also for parents, I think. And I don't know if this is possible, I might be barking up the wrong tree here, but if we can get arms or jabs into people's arms, that's a good way to go.
Yeah,
And it would have been very nice to be able to come in and be like, look.
Right, all our COVID clinics now are gonna be opened up. I mean, we just offered those just so that people can get in there, and because it is a difference, concentration and vial, we just wanted to just get those done for the big push of those that were interested. But all the other clinics, COVID clinics, and even our childhood immunization clinics, we are offering all age groups, the COVID vaccine.
Just want to come back in a month, I'm already scheduled, I can get mine and hers at the same time.
Well, if you registered while you were there for the next one, that's a specific one too, because we just set it up that we would just roll it over and keep those appointment slots the same.
I'll stick it, Kyle, I'll stick it.
Welcome.
We'll play act again for you.
Good friends. What if I like them?
But yes, you're right, often that does help, and we have done it in other clinics and stuff.
Most of the parents I talk to, on a scientific level or on a knowledge level, they're like, yes, I want my child to get vaccinated. Like, have you done it? Have you scheduled it? I just don't like to see him get it. I mean, I get it. I don't like it either. My wife makes me do it. I got a business we want to do.
Any other questions for Susan?
Sure, well, I wanted to comment, the presentation that Lori and Ryan did on Thursday at the Committee of the Whole for the board was tremendous. So, if I understood you correctly, you're working to bring them here, perhaps next month, so that'll be great. And for those of you who don't want to wait, Committee of the Whole, it was just about the first thing after the pledge. So if you watch if you want to dial into the video for last Thursday's 9 a.m. meeting, it was a great presentation, very informative, very thorough, very John and Jane Q Public understandable. Sometimes the science can, for me anyway, and some of the numbers can, but it was great information. So I thank them, and I sent them an email, because I forgot to do that last week, but sent them an email of direct thanks. So that'll be wonderful for them to come next month if they're available. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Susan. Way out in the East Coast there. Director Noel.
I just have a couple of things. Last week I met with Scott Peckendale, who is the Water Resources Manager for the county, And he is holding a water forum. He does it annually. It's August 31st. It will be at McHenry County College. This year's topic will be water quality. It's usually well attended. He loves to have people like you attend as well and help get the word out. So I said I would let you know about that. We'll be participating in it. We always have a table, but this time we'll be also participating with some part of the presentation. Let's see. As part of that, we also discussed that we are looking internally in environmental health about ways to increase our capacity for laboratory analysis related to water samples. Currently, we're certified for bacteriological sampling, and we are looking into obtaining our IEPA certification, which we've had in the past, which would then allow us to do our inorganics and things like that in-house. We are struggling somewhat with the private laboratory costs because they continue to escalate, and so we think it might be the right tipping point here to actually just get that certification back and do them internally. Will give us more flexibility in the future. Scott asked me also to pass on to you that he would be more than happy to come to one of your meetings here in the future and provide a presentation. He, I think, has done it in the past, but he does oversee the well monitoring network for the county, and they do gather data, and he has some very interesting things to share there. And then internally, we are working on, now that we have some dedicated staff for it, to get our website updated. It's a long process, but a good one, so we're making some progress there. And then lastly, working with IT to do some changes in some of our processes to increase our electronic storage. We do store almost everything electronically now, but just to get to that last little bit, it's so much easier to find our documents. And then working on getting some of our things off the network drives and into another system that makes it easier to use, easier to find, and less likely to be inadvertently deleted, things like that. So that's what we have.
Thank you. Any questions for Patty?
I don't have a question, but I was just, I'm not sure when but I'm working on my environmental group about getting grants, and that Saves Our Seas Act has $55 million annually to give out, and it's for government and non-government, and the RFIs are due July 25th, so I'm not sure if you're aware, because 40% of that money has to go to rural areas, and rural areas are underserved, so rural, which we would count, especially for because a lot of people are putting on comments about dumping and needing money to clear up dumping, and then apartments, that can be considered underserved areas. So I'll send you.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I think the actual application's not due in September, but the RFIs are up. So
That'd be great.
I'm sure.
Patty, when was that Scott's meeting or Scott's?
Yes, that's August 31st, and it's in the evening, and it's at McHenry County College.
Yeah, I went to the last one. It was Zoomed, but it was really, really good. He does really good presentations.
Yes, and this one will be in person this year, so
Okay.
they're kind of excited to get back to that.
They probably have a website or somewhere I can buy
Yeah,
tickets or?
yes.
Water.
It's open to everyone, and McHenry County H2O.
That's it, yeah.
Isn't it McHenry County?
I think so, yeah. I think that's what it is, yeah. Yeah. He's very passionate about water.
He
If
is.
you've ever met him.
Very
Very passionate.
Passion is good.
Yes. No, he's great. I've worked with him on other committees, so it's awesome.
Any other questions for Patty? So Joe reminded me that we did not introduce ourselves to you, so we're going to take a few seconds just to go around the table. I'm Cindy Gaffney. I am resident of Marengo, lived there 26 years, on 27 acres. I sell plastic injection molding resin and I run an animal welfare organization.
Joe Clark, I live in Marengo, out on a farm, and I'm a retired firefighter, and now I spend most of my time farming.
Take this off so you can see my face. I'm Laura Parrish. I'm on the county board, so I'm the liaison for the Board of Health here. And I'm just finishing up my fourth year of my first term. The rest of the time, right now I'm executive director of Samaritan Counseling Center, which is a not-for-profit organization in the northwest suburbs here.
I'm Kyle Markuson. I live in Crystal Lake. I am currently a firefighter paramedic and look to be a farmer in my future.
if I got something to sell you.
I bet you do.
It starts with S.
Yeah, we're retired ERs. And just learned how to put brakes on the truck. You go.
New career.
Yeah, well, that as well.
Henry Mike fiscal manager. I live in Woodstock.
Darlene Bond, and I work with the Board of Health, and I'm also in Vital Records doing birth and death certificates, and I live in Crystal Lake.
So I'll introduce myself. I live in Barrington Hills, the McHenry County corner of it, so I'm in McHenry County. And I work in McHenry County. I work for Northwestern. I'm in the urgent care. And I'm in charge of doing the scheduling for the physicians and the immediate cares.
Cecilia Carmen, I think you know my husband Jason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I'm a nurse, and, yeah, I've been we live in Lake in the Hills, and I've been in the board for about a year.
My name is Jay Gulati. I'm a small restaurant owner. I live in Lake in the Hills.
I'm Kristen McGuire. I've also been here about a year. I'm an emergency medicine physician. Live in McHenry County, but I practice at Alexian Brothers about 11 years now.
Thank you. Okay, to consent agenda, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Anyone want to pull anything out for discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Morowski?
Yes.
Ms. Herman?
Yes.
Mr. Markison?
Yes.
Dr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Galati?
Yes.
Ms. Gaffney?
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve the medicine disbursements for Northwestern?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you.
No, go ahead, Jimmy.
Any discussion? Darlene?
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Dr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Galati?
Yes.
Ms. Morowski?
Yes.
Ms. Carmen?
Yes.
Mr. Markison?
Yes.
Ms. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Gaffney?
Yes, thank you. Contracts and agreements, we have the IDPH Comprehensive Health Protection Grant Hepatitis B.
So this is part of our local health protection grant. It's very small, $3,000, and it's really just for the perinatal hepatitis B program case management. So the child born to a hepatitis B mother, chronic disease mother, we follow that to make sure that they complete their vaccination regime or series, and then we follow up with testing to make sure that they acquire the immunity needed.
How many a year do we have for that?
We maybe get 3 to 4 a year, but we are starting to see an increase.
Is 3,000 sufficient for that coverage?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I'll make a motion to approve the new contract with the Illinois Department of Public Health Comprehensive Health Protection Grant perinatal Hep B.
Thank you. Any second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Jay. Any discussion? Darlene?
Mr. Galati?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Markison?
Yes.
Ms. Carmen?
Yes.
Ms. Parrish?
Yes.
Dr. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Morowski?
Yes.
Ms. Gaffney?
Yes, thank you. Who has the contract for Ride and Ann?
Yes, me and Mary Ellen actually worked on that together. So our fleet units for the EIS program, where we can track where our cars and vehicles are located. They're just basically an auto vehicle locator. The current units are 3G technology. And so they will soon be deactivated, probably within the next 2 months. So we had to move in up to the new 5G units for each division because everybody uses them. So they're $1,745 per unit. That'll be a total $436.25 for the year for these units. And staff does use them to keep track of our employees, and if there's an issue or we're not hearing from somebody and something happened, we can locate them.
It's
less than $1 more a month per
Yes.
unit, the new upgrade.
And we have to do it because they won't work after, in another 2 months.
That's a monthly cost, on $17.45 a month.
Correct.
Yes.
Every unit. And is there an upgrade cost for the equipment? How long was our last contract with Verizon for 3G?
It was an older contract that just kind of kept rolling, obviously,
Yeah, 7,
because
8
we
years.
never
I think
upgraded
at least
them.
7, 8 years.
Yeah, so we
This
want
one's-
a new contract with a new technical.
This one sticks in my craw because this has affected a lot of people I know, like my parents for one. They had a cell service contract for their solar system and it was supposedly so many years and they're like, oops, we're just ending it. And it's happening everywhere, so.
The new software though, it's all web-based and there's a little bit more to it, which is nice. Because they
We don't have, no, there's no other option anyways.
Yeah, I know.
That's good.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the Verizon Connect contract.
Second.
Any further discussion? Darlene?
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Borowski?
Yes.
Dr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Galati?
Yes.
Ms. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Carmen?
Yes.
Mr. Markison?
Yes.
Ms. Gaffney?
Yes. Do we have any new business?
But next one.
We got the
big
ordinance.
agenda.
Yes, okay. Any board issues? Anyone?
Well, I don't have an issue, but I just wanted to, just comment, because my environmental group is working with, Chrissy Hulsman on the produce project, and that is going so phenomenal. I'm just so excited that we're able to work with her, and, my intern is doing, some asset mapping, so we're looking, to help you guys out, looking at where the extra food is and where the needs are, and trying to see how we can, connect those together, so. It's just amazing how much work is getting done there, so it's great. Good job for her.
It's great. Did you guys ever hook up with,
No, we're not that far yet.
Whenever they're ready.
Yeah. We're still doing surveys and,
Okay.
yeah, surveys, food banks, farmers,
Susan,
and
I
food
had
waste,
to-
so, yeah.
Did you need
We got a while.
private clinics to do testing or immunizations? Is that what were you, when you mentioned about COVID-19? That you're opening new clinics? I was trying
You said,
to.
oh, you're asking.
Well, they're
open to
We should do
public.
that.
Yeah.
Right, do we need more than what we have, or what we have is sufficient?
The vaccine?
No, the locations to give it.
Oh, I think we're okay for now.
Okay.
Yes, we're fine.
because if you don't.
No, I'm just asking if anything you need.
All right.
So I could give an update also. The Board of Health Regulation, Ordinance Promotion and Planning Committee, we met last week. I was voluntold, I was the new chairman. So, yay, here we go, new regime.
You were absent that day?
Yeah. They all stepped back and I was the last one. Actually, it was a very productive meeting and we were unable to, we got a portion of, as Mary Ellen mentioned, there was Articles 6, I think, as you guys. It was not quite ready for review at that point, so we reviewed the other, what was it?
1 through 5.
1 through 5, I was gonna say. That sounds right, I was gonna say 4 through 5, but yeah. And that all looked good, we didn't have any other outstanding thoughts on that. At this point, that information is being disseminated back to the community and other affected parties to make sure that, they have an opportunity to weigh in on any of those changes and then bring it back to us. And then we have our next meeting, it's coming up. It's September 6th.
September.
Yeah, it's not coming up.
Sorry, that's the next one.
And September 6th.
Yes. So, and then at that point, we'll be ready to move forward, all with the aim of getting this in front of the county board for their approval cycle. More to come.
Thank you. Any other board issues? Well, it's that time. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn. Are we,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
oh, I said it's that time. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
Did someone,
Second.
what,
I'll second.
if I could just, I don't know, if there was information and communication in particular, there was something about Veterans Path to Hope, was someone going to speak to that, or just, I mean, I saw it in the packet, but.
Yeah, that was the Operation Dropbox.
Mhm.
So we collected all those, we collected all the supplies that we requested. We used that as one of our exercises a couple meetings ago. We had a record number of donations this year, so it was a huge success, and we delivered all those supplies June to those.
Great job.
Path to Hope to distribute.
Congratulations.
I have 2 big bags of donations coming towards McKinney County. I was gonna ask where to drop it off. It's just all medical equipment, ortho stuff, knee braces and all that stuff.